Okay, folks, we're going to get started here. So welcome everybody. We are happy to have you all joining us, even though we can't see you, we know you're there. So today's webinar is communication skills. And this is one of our core classes, a very important one. We hope that by the end of today's webinar, you will have a little bit more knowledge and insight in the power of communication and the power of it to either go well or not go well. And we hope we can give you some tips on how to make it go well. So I'm going to just do a little bit of housekeeping before we move right into our class. And first and foremost, just to introduce myself, my name is Jean Alton. I'm a dementia care consultant with Alzheimer's San Diego. And as always, super pleased to be co-hosting today with Amy Abrams, who is our Director of Education at Alzheimer's San Diego.
Hi, everyone.
There she is. And so the two of us will be co-hosting today. And I just want to also say we have a colleague of ours joining us. And this is Ellen Boucher. Do I pronounce that correct, Ellen?
Boucher.
Boucher. I never know if we want to give it that little French flair or not. So Boucher, Ellen Boucher. Ellen is a colleague of ours at Alzheimer's San Diego. She's going to be assisting us here today. So we're very happy about that. And so here we have our agenda for today. So we're going to be talking about all these areas, about the symptoms of dementia, and trying to get a better understanding how these symptoms are impacting communication and behavior. It's tough for all of us, just as human beings, when we have somebody in front of us, and oftentimes somebody we care deeply about, who is arguing with us or doesn't see our intent or understand our intent, and we're just bonking heads on things, and we don't understand why this is going on. And so we're going to delve into exactly what's happening here in the brain that's causing these changes in communication and behavior, and how we manage those situations. So that's where we look at the strategies for how to get over these road bumps in terms of our communications. We'll also be talking very much about responding to behavioral expressions, and then we'll also be talking about ongoing support. Everything that we go through here today, folks, I just want to say up front that it's going to feel like we're asking just so very much of all of you as care partners. And fact is, we are. And that's tough. You folks already have so much on your plate. And now we're telling you, okay, now you have to take really 100% responsibility for the communications. So I just want to acknowledge that this is tough work you folks are doing. And we want to give you the strategies and the information and the support. And we want to say we understand we're all human beings, folks. We've all done it not so well a few times in our lives. So hang in there and let's work on this together, okay? So let's move along a little bit here. And I'm going to turn it over to Miss Amy, who's going to talk to us a little bit about dementia symptoms.
Great. Thank you, Jean, for the lovely introduction to all of the many topics we're going to cover here today. This is a very big and dense subject. We know that. I just want to say, too, we will be pausing toward the end of the program to take as many of your questions as we can. You do not need to wait until we get to that part of the program. As questions are coming up for you, feel free. Find that Q&A box now. Pop in your question as soon as it comes to you. And again, if Ellen can answer it right there on the spot, she'll take care of it. And if not, we'll try to get to it during the Q&A portion of the program. So welcome. I'm going to start by talking a bit about dementia symptoms, what exactly is going on in the brain of a person who is living with dementia, to help us kind of put the communication challenges that we see into some context. I'm going to see if my mouse is working here. Here we go. Okay. So start with making sure we've covered the basics and we've defined in most essential basic terms what it is that we're talking about here. Dementia is not one specific thing. It is the word that we use to describe a syndrome, a group of symptoms that are caused by some underlying medical condition. So Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia. It is the most common type of dementia, but it is only one of the possible medical conditions that could cause this group of symptoms that we call dementia. So dementia is not just a memory problem, right? As most of you who've been caring for somebody living with dementia for quite some time have probably connected those dots and recognized there's a lot more going on here than not being able to remember a conversation from a few minutes ago. Right? These conditions impair memory and other aspects of a person's normal daily function. So memory changes, language changes, difficulty focusing one's attention and concentration, having a hard time with problem solving, changes to a person's personality, having different behavior, acting, saying and doing things that are kind of out of character, and changes to the visual spatial field are very common. So why is this happening? Let's talk a little bit about having difficulty with my mouse here. I always like to talk about the changes that are happening in the different regions of the brain, not because we're trying to make physiologists out of any of you. What we really want is that in those really frustrating moments, when you encounter a person who you've known for months, years, your entire life, right, depending upon the nature of your relationship with this person, when you encounter them not remembering a key moment in your shared history together, if there comes a time that they don't recognize you, should there come a time that they feel suspiciously or paranoid toward you, I think it can be really helpful for us in those moments as care partners to remember these are symptoms of this person's disease. And so understanding what exactly is going on is a really helpful way. People ask us all the time, what can I do to be more patient? Where can I find more compassion in those really hard moments? And I have found in my many years of working with people living with dementia, that being able to think about what is going on in there gives me it kind of grounds me and gives me some opportunity to remember this person is not in control of what's happening with them right now. So a very quick walk through the brain will tell us a little bit about, as the disease is spreading into different lobes of the brain, what could we expect to see? The temporal lobes in this image in the slide deck, it's the purple region. They're kind of right here, but in the middle of the brain, right? But deeper than our ears. The temporal lobes and the medial temporal lobes in particular are very involved in our memory, specifically our short-term memory, as well as our verbal language center. This is the region of the brain where Alzheimer's disease, that particular form of dementia, that's where the pathology begins to accumulate in most people. And so because of that, what we see is changes to short-term memory, changes to verbal language are, for many people with Alzheimer's as well as other forms of dementia, changes to their memory are a very early symptom, a very common symptom, and they remain so throughout the disease. The disease then is likely to spread into the frontal lobes of the brain, which are up here behind our forehead. This is the part of your brain that's really your CEO, your problem solver. This is where a lot of your executive function, your ability to take in information and decide what to do with it, the seat of your behavior regulation, right? If a person with a healthy brain is feeling angry or frustrated, what they can usually do, right, if they're in a social situation where it would not be appropriate to show that they're feeling angry or frustrated, kind of take a deep breath. This part of your brain sort of kicks in and says, you know what, hold it together for a few minutes, right? This is the regulator of our emotions. When there is disease in that part of the brain, it's harder for people to regulate those emotions. They feel it, they show it, right? So this is the part of your brain that's very involved in your emotions and in your behavior. And maybe most importantly for the topic of our conversation here today, this is the part of your brain that allows you to have empathy for other people, to see things from the other person's perspective, right? To say, boy, she seems really upset right now. I wonder if it's something that I did. Is it something that I said, right? That part of the brain is damaged in people with dementia, and that causes an enormous communication barrier. Our parietal lobes are up in the crown of our head. This is the part of our brain where perception and the ability to process sensory information is really seated. Sort of more complicated word and thought formation is centered in that region of the brain. The occipital lobe, the bright pink region in that diagram there, this is the part of your brain that directly connects to your eyeballs and is very involved. When there's damage in the occipital lobe, this is where we're likely to see changes to the person's field of vision. Their peripheral field of vision tends to shrink dramatically, which causes all sorts of changes in terms of the person's balance, their gait, but maybe most importantly for the topic of communication, which we're focused on here today, it literally makes people see the environment differently than you do. Right? So sometimes you feel when you're talking to somebody who's living with dementia, you know, we're sitting in the same room looking at the same thing, but we're seeing this so differently, right? Literally, that may be the case. And then the cerebellum back toward the base of the brain, near the brain stem. This is responsible for a lot of our fine motor skill, as well as many of the bodily movements. Okay, keep this going here. Okay. Please keep in mind, communication changes are symptoms of that person's disease. These changes, these are symptoms. They are not something that are within this person's control. So a comparison I like to draw is that if a person is living with type 2 diabetes, for example, right? When their blood sugar spikes or drops, this is something that is out of their control, right? This has to do with their pancreas function. It's not a character judgment. They're not having high or low blood sugar because they feel like it or because they're trying to be difficult. Right? So too with people with dementia. And this can be really, really hard. I know it can be really hard in those frustrating moments to separate the person and yourself from those symptoms, but it's really important that we try. So again, I remind you to try to go back to that image of the brain and remember that these things that we're seeing the person say and do that are so out of character for them, these are symptoms, right? These are not things that are within that person's control. So some of the changes that we're likely to see: difficulty with word finding, either being able to come up with the right word and say it, or to understand the words that someone else is saying. Having a hard time connecting what is seen with what is heard. This has a lot to do with that damage in the parietal lobe that I was talking about. So if I were sitting here in this room and there's a door, over my shoulder, and I heard that door open, in all likelihood, right, my brain would allow me to understand that's the sound of a door opening. And so when a person comes into my field of vision in a few seconds, I won't be surprised by that, because my brain connected what I heard with what I'm seeing now, right? That function is difficult in people with dementia. And so do keep in mind that for a lot of people living with Alzheimer's disease and other forms of progressive dementia that affect the parietal lobe up there, that often not relying so heavily on words, but relying more on visual cues can be very helpful. We'll focus on that a lot as we go along here. It can be hard for folks with dementia to filter out background noise or distraction. People become easily frustrated when communication isn't working. In fact, you not being able to understand me or me not being able to understand you during this communication that we're trying to have, that is a very common trigger for a behavioral episode, as we'll talk about here in a bit. It's not uncommon for people who speak more than one language fluently to retain their native language longer. So if you are caring for somebody whose their primary language is not the language that you speak, right? And they're coming in and out of those different languages and reverting back to that primary language, they're not doing that on purpose, right? To try to manipulate you or be tricky with you. That's not something that they're really in control of. And probably the one of the more common symptoms and one of definitely the most frustrating symptoms for care partners is repetition, right? Saying the same thing over and over again, or more commonly asking a question over and over and over again. Right, as I assume some of you here in the room with us or the Zoom with us here today are living with that particular symptom. It's very, very common. It's kind of an inescapable symptom. It's really about, I mean, I think for a lot of care partners, we tend to ascribe personal characteristics to this symptom. We say, it's selective listening, or, they're just tuning me out, or they weren't paying attention. And that's why they don't remember, that's why they keep asking, right? But in fact, it may be that the person doesn't remember your response. And so that's why they're asking again, what time are we going? What time do we need to leave? It's often about time and calendars and schedules for a lot of people. That's a common anxiety. It's not that they don't remember your answer necessarily, it's that they actually don't remember having asked that, right? Remember back to that purple region of the brain that I showed you, the temporal lobe. That's where the memory of, I asked this question 5 minutes ago and I got an answer and she said we were going to be leaving at 11 o'clock, right? That's where that memory would have been created and consolidated and be available for me when I need it later. There's damage in that part of the brain. There's disease there. Brain cells have died. I don't have the ability as a person living with dementia to remember that we had that conversation, let alone that you answered me and what your answer was. So those are just the most common of the communication challenges that we see. I welcome you, by the way, if you want to share any other communication challenges that you're experiencing with the person that you care for, feel free to share that in the chat. There's a lot of you with us here today, and you can't see each other and hear from each other and share the benefit of each other's experiences unless you use that little chat box. So feel free. If there's something else that you're seeing going on in your life that you don't see listed here, please feel free to tell us about it. These are just the most common symptoms that we see. I'm really having trouble here. Okay, so one of the most important concepts when it comes to learning to be an effective communicator with a person who's living with dementia is understanding how much insight does this person have into their own memory loss. So I want to tell you about a very important condition called anosognosia. This information, by the way, comes to us through Teepa Snow, who is an occupational therapist and a renowned dementia educator, trained and certified both Jean and myself and many of us on the staff at Alzheimer's San Diego and thousands of people around the country and worldwide in a method that's called the positive approach to care. So we've provided her website there if you're interested in learning more about her or the positive approach to care. One of the most important things to understand is this condition that is called anosognosia. Anosognosia refers to, first, it comes from the ancient Greek, sort of a beautiful word actually, for without disease knowledge. And this is gonna connect some dots for many of you, I think, right? When a person is living with dementia, it's very likely that they have no awareness that anything has changed with them, right? So often what it looks like to the rest of us is this person is hiding things, this person is covering up, this person is being manipulative, right? When they go to the doctor and the doctor says, how are you doing? And they say, I'm doing fine, right? Instead of reporting on all these challenges we've been having, right? We tend to think this person is lying, or most commonly we think they are in denial. Right? Denial is one of the biggest problems that family care partners come to us trying to address. It's really important to understand that most of the time, the person is not actively denying, hiding, covering up. They actually don't know that anything has changed with them. So anosognosia is a medical condition wherein a person has a deficit of self-awareness. They do not know that things have changed with them. They don't remember the extent to which they're not remembering things. Right? It's a great dilemma. Really the biggest catch-22, I would say, of many of these progressive conditions. So about 50%, according to the occupational therapy data that's out there, about 50% of people who are living with dementia, early stage, we're talking primarily, are not aware that anything has changed. They have this condition called anosognosia. Another 20% or so do have an awareness that things are changing with them. I know I'm losing my memory. I know I'm starting to struggle. I had to stop working, right? Whatever the situation may be. And their response to that is to feel angry and to sort of just try to keep everybody else at bay. If you all would kind of stay out of my life, stay out of my space, stop coming into my house and moving things around or telling me what to do, right? If you let me manage this, I can do it. Right? So those folks are aware that they are losing their skills and they feel kind of angry and controlling about it. And then about another 30% or so fall into this category of having an awareness that things have changed with them and feeling anxious about it. I know now that I really need, Jean is my care partner, and I know I need her to be my memory from now on because I'm really struggling. So if I'm a person that falls into this category, aware and anxious, I'm going to worry every time I don't see Jean, right? I'm going to wonder where she is. I'm going to be really worried about, oh, did she leave me, right? Is she overwhelmed by trying to take care of me? Is she going to abandon me? So being able to understand where your person is a really helpful first step in formulating an effective way of communicating with them. So we want to communicate with people differently. We want to have different goals for our communication based on where we think they are on this pie chart. And I just want to say it's not perfectly clean and simple like this. People don't necessarily just fall into one slice of this pie and stay there. Things can certainly change. So you have to kind of read, where is the person right now? When a person has no awareness that anything has changed with them, right, we're not going to be successful, for example, at having the conversation about giving up the car keys with somebody who does not remember that we went to the doctors, you've received a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, and they suggested that you should stop driving. And by the way, they made the report to the DMV and you're no longer allowed to drive, right? Bringing that up is not going to be a helpful way of communicating you can't drive anymore to a person who does not remember that any of those things happened. Right? So what we need to do instead is change the way that they feel about the fact that they're not driving anymore. It's a little tricky, right? But now I'm going to be doing the driving, or Jean's going to take over and start doing more of the driving. I need to focus on that in my communication and not the fact that you're no longer able to drive. We'll be giving you some examples of what this looks like. For people who are aware that things are changing with them and are feeling angry and controlling, our goal is just to stay as close and connected to them as we can, sort of quietly, in a way, kind of sneaking around, right? Providing support, getting in there and helping where you can without being very direct about the fact that they've done something wrong. We're not pointing out what we're fixing or what we're correcting. We're just kind of quietly going behind the person. Back in the days when I was a professional care manager, we would call this stealth care management, right? Kind of working quietly behind the scenes because this person didn't really want my help. They needed my help, right? But they didn't really want it. And if I pointed out what I was doing, right, I was not going to be welcome to keep doing those things. And so then with folks who are anxious, what we need to do is just provide lots of reassurance, right? We are a team. I know you're worried about me, and I love that, and I appreciate that, and I thank you for being concerned about me, but I'm not going anywhere, right? This is the message we want to keep in mind with these folks. So this is a very hard truth about caring about or loving somebody who is living with a progressive form of dementia, and we just have to put it out there and talk about it, right? Your relationship is changing. It's inescapable. It's unavoidable. They cannot change what is happening in their brain. At the moment, we don't have effective forms of treatment or ways to reverse progressive forms of dementia like Alzheimer's disease. This is not in their control. It's also not in your control. But what we can do is adapt the way we respond to it. So that's what we're focusing on here today. I also want to just like take a moment and step back and say, you're changing too, right? As the friend, as the spouse or the partner, the family member, whatever your relationship is to that person, you as an individual are changing over time, just in natural ways. We all grow and evolve and change over time, but you're feeling the impact of a lot of things right now. I mean, surely the stress of being a care partner, of trying to understand the symptoms of dementia and respond to all of this, that puts some stress on you. But I mean, unquestionably, the state of the world is causing some stress and some change for many of you right now too, right? So we just need to acknowledge that. They're not the only one that is changing, going through some stuff here. You are as well. So this relationship is not like it was before. It can be really good. We see lots of families who their relationships turn into something different, into something that's very beautiful, but it will be different from what it was before. So I just need to take a quick pause here. And, you know, I have just talked about a lot that has changed, right? Functions that they have lost in their brain, ways of functioning that are different for them than they used to be. The nature of your relationship is changing. It's a lot to take in. It's significant. It has consequences and weighs on us heavily. What I want to encourage you to do is think for a moment, and if you would, Jean, can I go back to, yeah. If you would, in the chat, and by the way, Jean mentioned that this session is being recorded, but chat is not being recorded. So this is all private. We'd love to hear from you. Take a moment and think about at least one thing about your person, what they love to do, a song they still respond to, the way that they laugh, right? What is one thing about the person that you care for that has not changed during the course of this disease? If you would, in the chat, share any thoughts that you have. We'd love to hear those.
Ellen, what kind of things have we got popping up?
People are inquiring, what are the early signs of Alzheimer's disease and dementia? And how can they tell if it's dementia or if they're simply not paying attention?
Okay, we'll come back to questions in a bit here. Thank you for those. I wanted to talk a little bit about the things that haven't changed here for a moment, right? And I see some nice responses coming in the chat. This person loves nature walks. Oh, hiding things. Yeah, maybe that something they always used to do. Right? Is there something, is there a movie that your person always loved to watch that they still love to watch? My Nana still loves people, social interactions, and family. She cares so much about other people's well-being, loves to garden, loves to go for a ride. That's a really effective one for a lot of folks. To color pictures. Oh, yeah. Music.
I think I saw one that said, you know, still has his sense of humor.
Ooh, yes. Thank you. I didn't see
That's
that.
a great one.
She loves Wheel of Fortune. Yay. That's so great. To pet the dog. Lots of references to music. Oh, caring for plants. That's lovely. Gardening and house plants. Yeah. Love of her animals, older movies. Beautiful. Please keep these coming. We won't sit here and read these all afternoon, although I would I would love to. Please keep these coming. We're going to come back to this. This is an important exercise for you. We're not just trying to invade your privacy here. There is a method to our madness here. It's really important that in the hard moments of being a dementia caregiver, we can get really caught up in all all of the loss and all of the anger and the frustration. And it can be very hard to see the forest for these trees that still exist, right? That this person still loves to go to the casino, that there are still things we can, little bits of this person that are absolutely still there, that we can draw from. Okay, with that, I will click ahead and turn things back over to you, Jean.
Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to talk about next is, what are the strategies that we can use to hopefully improve and make our communications and conversations more effective. And by doing that, we are also kind of improving and strengthening our connection with each other. And so just, I want you to be thinking about that just a little bit, how important, I think we are all seeing, particularly in these times, the importance of connection with one another. And, we've got some limitations on us right now, that's for sure. But, we can connect verbally, we can connect with our eyes. It's great when we can and do have the opportunities safely to connect physically. If that's the kind of people we are, we like to hug. I'm a hugger. But right now I can't do that, not, other than with my husband, but nobody else. So that type of connection is gone for the moment. But there's other ways we can do things here. So communication is far more than just language. And I think all of you probably would agree with me on that. I want to say, I'm going to steal a phrase that Amy used earlier, which just resonated with me. She said, that sometimes these communication problems that we can have with our people living with dementia can result in behavioral episodes. Well, I had a little bit of a behavioral episode last night here at my house with my husband. And it was because the communication was more than just verbal. It was some of these other things as well, where we were just at odds with each other in our communications. So for sure, tone. Now, if I say to you, Amy, would you mind very much if I could just ask you to do X, Y, Z? Versus, Amy, get me X, Y, Z. There's a whole lot of difference between tone in that example. And then think about our facial expressions, folks. Everything from, are we like frowning and looking like we're angry when we're asking someone to do something? Or are we relaxed and the shoulders are back and we are smiling? If not with our face, then at least with our eyes. And yes, you can smile with your eyes.
Especially important when we're wearing masks, right?
Absolutely. And that's a really important distinction for all of us to be aware of right now. I already made inadvertently reference to posture. It just, again, when our shoulders are back and we're sitting up straight and looking people in the eye, we are conveying, first of all, a more relaxed and open kind of attitude and demeanor. And, this eye contact, folks, even through cameras like this, it's still really, really important. And so body language and movement, you see, I like to talk a lot with my hands and I move around a lot. And if you ever had seen me in person at classes, you'll see that's how I operate on a regular basis. So I've had to adjust it here with the Zoom. So I tend to use now my hands a lot more, but I do express things with my hands. And all of these different areas, are important ways for people living with dementia to take in additional information besides just what we're saying here. And you know, of course, our behavior also communicates all sorts of things. So if I'm rushing around and I'm like really moving, Amy, come on, we've got to get ready. It's time to go. The doctor's appointment's at 2 o'clock. That's my behavior telling all sorts of things, that I seem like I maybe am angry or upset or agitated. About what? I don't know. Is it because I have to take Amy to the doctor, or is something else going on? We look at behavior and try to take all this information from it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So we do need to be aware of our behavior when we're communicating as well too. So how do we connect? Some of the things I've just been talking about, folks, is eye contact and physical position. You know, for those of you that are caring for your person living with dementia in the home, you have perhaps more opportunity to be kind of more physically, to be physically present. So what does that mean? Well, what I would say is, rather than having mom sitting at the table eating breakfast and you're in the kitchen asking questions or giving information, whatever it is, go on and sit at the table with her. Get your physical presence and position there within her scope of vision, and so that she can see you and see your eyes and see the expressions on your face in addition to what it is you're saying. A great way to do things is to, I saw in Q&A earlier a comment or a question about how do I know if a person is experiencing memory loss at the moment, or if they're simply not paying attention to me? So in other words, is it the disease, or is it they're not paying attention? Well, a great way to mitigate some of those challenges is to offer an introduction of yourself. So, hi, Mom, it's me, Jean, your favorite daughter. So what am I doing? I'm kind of doing a bit of a movement here to catch her eye. Ideally, I'm going to be, in front of her, just a few feet out, and looking at her right in the face. And I'm saying, who am I? My name is Jean. I'm your daughter. I've given her that information. And I threw it in that I'm her favorite daughter. So there's a lot of information just came in that short, quick introduction. And you can lighten it up like that by saying, do you feel silly you're introducing yourself to your mother or your husband or whatever? You just make it light. What's wrong with, hi, I'm Jean and I'm your favorite wife? Make it into a humorous thing. And hopefully I'm your only wife. But, just have some fun with it. Make it light and easy. Pay attention to your tone and volume. So we talked about that a little bit. You don't need to shout, folks. These, unless people do have hearing loss, but having Alzheimer's doesn't mean you're deaf. You don't need to shout. That doesn't necessarily help with the explanations. So just keep your tones normal and keep them pleasant. And for sure, give lots of time for conversations, both in terms of what you are saying, giving to people, and giving them time to give back to you as well too. And of course, consider other ways to communicate with the senses, which we will be talking about in a little bit. So here's the kind of the techniques, the do's and the don'ts, if I may. Use short, clear sentences. We say oftentimes in our classes here, many of them, and for sure in this communication class, what do we do when we feel like people are not understanding what it is we want them to do? What do? We over-explain.
Give more facts.
We give all sorts of more facts and additional information and context and explanation, and oh my gosh, we just pile it on, don't we? We all do it. So what we know works better with folks living with dementia is to be short and clear, be precise. You know, I think, Amy, you sometimes refer to it, we need to talk in the same way that we communicate by email, right? So just make it much simpler. Limit choices and simplify the instruction. Why do we limit choices? Well, for our folks living with dementia, if you offer them a buffet versus a soup or a sandwich, with the buffet, they might not, you know, it might just be overwhelming. There's just too many choices. But if I offer you A or B, a soup or a sandwich, you know, I don't know, whatever else it might be, the blue dress or the green dress, having those limited choices makes it easier. And I think, you know, truthfully, think about all of us with this. Have any of you ever kind of stood in your closet and you've got a closet full of clothes and you just stand there and you're just like, I don't know what to wear, or I have nothing to wear. So sometimes we just, if we only had 2 items in the closet, would we be saying that? No. So, you know, we need to simplify it here. Here's another interesting one. We do need to repeat the questions and the statements when they're needed. So even though it's so frustrating, folks, I know maybe being asked 40, 50, 60 times, that same thing over and over and over. When are we going home? When are we going? You are home, Mom. 1 minute later, when are we going home? You are home, Mom. But what we do know, you know, through the research that's been done, is the best strategy to respond to these folks so things don't escalate is to repeat either your statement or repeat your question again, and say it in the same fashion that you did before, which hopefully is in a loving and kind way. And there's some wiggle room there, which we can talk about a little further on. That, you know, lots of people have come up with some good techniques to manage that. And I'm going to give you a quick example. Is for people that are saying, you know, well, what are we doing today, or what time is the doctor's appointment? Use of a whiteboard can be really helpful to care partners, so that, you know, maybe the first 10 times the question is asked, you answer it, and then you're getting kind of frustrated with that. So then you can change the answer to have a look at the whiteboard. The information is on there. So again, simple. Keep it simple. Address the person for sure directly. And I think this is really important because I think folks, we're all tending to, certainly at least prior to the pandemic, to talking to people when we're either doing other things or we're on our phones or we're in another actually area of the room, potentially in another room. And I think that diminishes our communications for all of us. I think we need to really make concerted efforts to quit worrying about multitasking and start focusing on being present and being with the person. And of course, you know, avoid any kind of baby talk or elder speak. You know, we're not each other's sweeties unless we really are our sweeties. And I'm not your honey or your dear, you know, if I'm somebody that you're caring for and you're, you know, somebody from a company or who knows, you know, even if, say, I'm being cared for by my nephew, I might let him say, call me dear, I might, but really, you know, that would be a little bit weird, right? I don't want to be, oh, you're okay, dear, from my nephew. It just kind of feels a little bit condescending, actually. So here's the things we try not to do. I don't know if we say don't, because again, we're all human here, folks. And I want to tell you personally, I have done each and every one of these things with a person living with dementia. I wish with the hindsight of my years and my career, you know, obviously I wish I haven't, but I have learned, but it's still, and I'm still learning. So try not to argue. This is a big one. And it goes back, I want to tie it in with Amy talking about anosognosia, because that's a terrific one, where folks are saying, you know, well, I don't have any memory loss problems and I don't need your help. And it's so tempting and really easy to get into an argument. Well, yes, you do, Mom. I took you to the doctor. We sat there together. The doctor said you have Alzheimer's disease. Well, first of all, Mom has memory loss. And secondly, she has anosognosia. So as far as she's concerned, perhaps that encounter never took place. And if it did, it was, you know, the doctor was wrong. Everything is okay. And there's just no point in trying to argue and use reasoning when folks are firm in their belief. People living with Alzheimer's disease are firm in their belief. Don't correct them. We give our people living with Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia a pass. So if they're saying, you know, calling somebody by a name that is not their name, or they're saying things that are factually incorrect, there's just no need to correct them. And why? Well, none of us really likes being corrected, right? It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. Sometimes it needs to happen, but it doesn't in our communications with people with dementia. Don't remind the person that they forgot. Again, it's just simply not helpful. And in fact, it just seems to actually almost underscore for that person the disability that they are experiencing. You know, for a person, this may sound kind of crass or strange, but seriously, for a person who is blind, are we going to continually remind them that they can't see? Oh, put that down. You can't see it anyways. I mean, it's not necessary. And frankly, I think it turns in the end to be counterproductive. No reason for the same reasons to question or quiz their recent memory. You're not helping them out by doing that. Yes, it's important to keep the brain active and engaged, but no, that doesn't mean you need to quiz or question recent memory. There's other good things, far more productive things you can do. And the one here at the end is try not to take it personally. Years ago, I remember I attended some kind of, you know, professional caregiver class, and where one of the things they talked about was not taking it personally. And they asked us all to actually take a Q-tip. You know, all know a Q-tip, right? The little cotton swabs. And, you know, have it on our desktops, somewhere here on around our computers. And the Q-tip meant quit taking it personally. So that was the little visual reminder for that, quit taking it personally. So here's some things you want to try. And it takes time to do these things, folks, like to acquire them as parts of your communication responses that become automatic. So it takes practice, just like it does with many, many things in life. Try framing your statements and requests in a positive way, just like I illustrated before in asking, Amy to do XYZ nicely and politely. Amy, would you mind to do XYZ for me, please? Versus don't do that or do this. Kind of those directive, I'm telling you what to do kind of statements are often not well received. And do your best to maintain your spirit of generosity and forgiveness. One of our colleagues, she said it, I think best, she said, speak with your heart, not your mind. So put your love for that person in the language that you're using. it's hard, but your efforts will pay off. Tap into that when you're having these rough days, these really rough, tough days. Do your best to tap into that. And yes, remember that kindness can be much more important than honesty. I saw a question in Q&A earlier about mother with dementia when she has a nap and then she wakes up, she forgets that her husband has died and died many years ago. And that's a frequent question for us at Alzheimer's San Diego. And I often give this answer, which I'm going to give to you, which is something I witnessed myself and it will stay with me forever. Lovely lady that I worked with in a care facility, and her name was Joey. She was Irish, she had red hair, and she always wore a red tam. And her husband was Joe, Joey and Joe. He was the love of her life. She talked about him all the time, the love of her life. And he had died a long time ago. And usually around 4 o'clock-ish, end of the day, kind of the sundowning time of day, which we often refer to, she started looking for Joe. When was Joe going to get home from work? And one day she was fussing about where was Joe and asking where, when would he be home? And I saw a caregiver answer Joey by saying, Joe died. Joe died a long time ago. And I watched this beautiful little lady who I adored just crumple with grief. It was as if it was the first time she'd heard it. Well, it was for her.
Right.
She said she just started crying. She said, nobody told me. How could nobody tell me about my Joe? Oh, she was so distraught. It was terrible, you guys. I've got little chills going on, and I still kind of tear up myself. We can't do that to people. We can't do that to people. That's my opinion. And it is, shared by all of us as professionals at Alzheimer's San Diego. If you don't feel comfortable saying an untruth to your person, there's ways to go around that. And we can share those thoughts and ideas with you if you give us a call. So, kindness over honesty. Focus on the feelings, not the facts. Try to focus less on the words and more about what is the emotion that's being expressed behind the words. So what they're saying might not be correct, but our feelings are never wrong. Our feelings are our feelings, and they're always valid. And so that's what we call this, is validation, which is recognizing and affirming that the person and their feelings are worthwhile, are important, that we are listening and acknowledging. So we want to agree with them, give them some reassurance, show that we have some understanding, and show that we have some empathy. So with that, Amy and I want to illustrate some things here for you. So what we're going to do in this instance is just a little bit of role playing. And in this instance, Amy is going to be a person living with dementia. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I am going to be, who am I going to be, Amy? I'm your care partner, but what's our relation?
You can be my daughter.
Okay. All right. So it's lunchtime, Amy. Sit down at the table. Here's your lunch.
What?
Put the plate in front of you.
I don't want to eat this. I hate chicken. I hate chicken. I'm not eating this.
What? you told me you wanted chicken. I'm not making anything else.
I never said that. I would never have said that. I hate chicken.
No,
I'm not eating this.
No, you love chicken. You had chicken yesterday. You often eat chicken. I don't know what's going on here, but I'm not making anything else here.
Well, I'm not eating this.
Well, okay. So, let's ask the questions.
If we were in person, I could have like thrown the plate or something.
Well, you could have. And you know
yeah.
what? People do that. That happens.
If you just kept telling me over and over again that I like chicken, that's probably where we would have ended up, right? A plate on the wall.
So, what is this all about? What is Amy really saying when she says she doesn't want to eat this, that she hates chicken? Really, what is she saying? Let's see if we get some thoughts in chat.
Think about focusing on the feeling there. When you tell someone you don't want to eat something, what are you really saying?
Maybe Amy was saying that she's not ready to eat right now. Maybe it's not about chicken or no chicken. It's just, I'm not ready to eat right now. Maybe she's not feeling so good. Maybe her tummy's upset.
There's a good response in chat here. I want control, right? You're telling me what I have to eat. I don't want to eat this. I want to eat what I feel like.
Yeah. And so, what was my agenda? Well, she was going to eat that chicken that I made for her, or she wasn't getting nothing else, right? So I wanted to be in control.
And I mean, I just want to step back and be realistic about this situation. If she's my daughter and she's been cooking for me and caring for me for a long time, and she really genuinely knows that I do, in fact, like chicken, right? It's important for her to stick to her agenda. She knows I'm going to enjoy this meal. She is not going to go back in that kitchen and make me something different, right? So what she needs to do is change my mind, right?
So how might we replay this? Let's do this over again. All right, Amy, it's lunchtime. Here's your lunch. I made some chicken for you.
Oh, chicken? No, I don't want to eat this. I hate chicken.
No. Gosh, I'm so sorry. I thought that you enjoyed chicken.
Well, I don't.
I thought I'd give this particular recipe a try. How about, I'm going to taste it a little bit myself and see how it tastes. Would you be willing to just taste it and see what we think?
Well, I'll watch you taste it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take a bite here. So I'm going to take a bite. It's pretty good, actually. So, gosh, do you remember that time, Amy, we were out for lunch with sister Ellen, our sister Ellen Boucher, and we had that really lovely lunch at the soup plantation. And they made that really great chicken noodle soup there. We could probably make some great chicken noodle soup out of it.
Yeah, chicken noodle soup is good. I love chicken noodle soup.
Okay, well, that's good. Let's give that, let's eat a little bit of this chicken, and then what's left over, I'm going to make chicken soup.
Sounds good.
Will you help me?
Sure. All
right. And that's totally off the cuff, folks. I had no idea where I was going with this.
Same. She had no script for that.
So, but, a little bit of that is acknowledging that, she's saying she didn't like chicken, and I'm saying, oh gosh, I'm sorry. I thought you did like chicken.
Right. She never disagreed with me. She never corrected me, in a creative way, reminded me of a time that I enjoyed chicken, but she never told me that I was wrong or, yes, you do. Yeah, we didn't have to fight about that.
And then I threw in some redirection there about getting her, off the topic, thinking about our nice lunch. And then we went from there. So let's try this one. Again, Amy will be the person living with dementia, and I'm the care partner. So come on, Amy, we've got to go. We've got a doctor's appointment. It's time. Get your
What?
purse and let's get going.
A doctor's appointment? You did not tell me. No, if I have a doctor's appointment, you need to give me notice. I need time to get ready. I'm not going. You didn't tell me about this.
No, Amy, this is your doctor. You've been seeing this particular doctor for years and years, and we've got a regular appointment, so it's on your calendar. It's Dr.
Well,
Jones.
It wasn't there when I looked yesterday. You must have
Well,
just written that on there.
That's not true. We made the appointment 3 months ago, so
Well, you forgot to tell me.
okay. Let's do a redo. So, Amy, we're going to go to the doctor's. So get your coat and your purse and let's get going.
No, I didn't know about a doctor's appointment. No, I'm not going. You can't just come in here and tell me that I have to go to the doctor's.
Oh my gosh. You're upset about this.
Yeah, I'm upset.
I am hearing you, and I am so sorry. This is my fault. I forgot to tell you about this.
Yeah,
You're
trying to rush me.
Yeah, I wrote it on your calendar, but I am so sorry I didn't tell you about it. So I apologize, and please be aware this will not happen again. Now, we do have that appointment today. Do you think I could sweeten the offer by offering to get you and I can stop at the Haagen-Dazs store and get some nice ice cream afterwards? Would that help?
Yeah, Jean knows. Ice cream will always work. Sure.
Okay. So again, just validating that I'm hearing you. This is upsetting to you. You don't want to go. And I'm, showing you respect with that. And then I'm also apologizing and taking responsibility. Whether I told her yesterday or not, doesn't matter.
There's the hard part, I think, for a lot of us is eating crow and taking the fall, taking the blame for something we didn't do. And that's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
But it's a very powerful way to let somebody feel heard and seen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so that's just an example again, and that's off the cuff of how you can maybe manage those situations. So what does it mean? It means more yes and less no. So, and we are going to pass things back to Amy, and she's going to talk about behavioral expression.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jean. So we've talked a few times here today about communication being, about behavioral expression being a form of communication. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit here. There we go. What are we talking about when we say behavioral expression? We're just talking about someone doing something that was out of character for them. So in that little role play, right, Jean may have made me chicken salad lunches, those sandwiches every day for weeks or months, and she knows it's my favorite. But in that moment, when I push it away and tell her I hate it and I'm not going to eat this, that's an out of character response for me. Right. So that's what we mean when we say behavior. It doesn't necessarily imply that something is negative. It's just not something that the person would have done before they had dementia. Behavior is a symptom of disease. It's a way of communicating, I need something. So I may be consciously expressing that need, but it may also be not conscious. I may not be aware that I have that need. Right? What might this look like? Any number of things: being restless, pacing, being anxious, highly agitated, repeating myself, asking that same question over and over again. Shadowing is when a person is just stuck, right there, your shadow. They're right there with you all the time. They really don't want to be out of your sight for more than a few minutes. When people are expressing depression-like symptoms, tearfulness, sadness, often that is a new behavior for them. Withdrawing, saying, no, thanks, I don't want to go to activities and to see people whose company they've always really enjoyed. That could be a behavioral expression. Becoming aggressive, combative. I mentioned briefly before paranoia and suspicion. right? This is the person's way of kind of keeping themselves safe, saying, I don't trust the people around me, and that may mean you, right? In that moment too. Paranoia is a common behavioral expression that we see: wandering, just getting lost in a moment of confusion, disorientation. That could mean leaving the house, but sometimes people wander within their own homes or their own yards too, right? Just sort of doing circles, doing laps, looking for someone, looking for something that isn't actually there, right? In that moment of confusion. Disinhibition, this can look like lots of different things: taking off your clothes in a public place, saying inappropriate things to people out in public, right? Lots of different reasons or different examples that we might see in a person who's living with dementia. Along with that withdrawal, often we see apathy or just straight refusal to accept assistance. No thanks. I don't feel like going for a walk. Yeah, I don't care that we made that doctor's appointment 3 months ago. I don't really care. I don't want to go. I don't need that help. Sleep disturbance, very common in people with dementia. And of course, if you live with this person, you're very likely to have sleep disturbance too. And that has impacts on both of you. And then sundowning is that behavioral expression that Jean mentioned briefly before, a very common situation we see in people, especially in mid-stage dementia, but it can happen at other times as well, where all of these other behaviors, more agitation, more combativeness, disorientation, confusion, can happen in the hours of the late afternoon, early evening. Sort of a couple of hour window that tends to be problematic for a lot of folks. All of these are common. Most people won't have all of these behavioral expressions, at least not all at once, but any of these, if you're seeing them, know that you're not alone. They do happen in people with dementia frequently. So what do we need to do in responding to that person's behavior? We want to figure out, is there something physical, something medical that's going on with them? Is there something in their environment? Ultimately, our goal, of course, is to redirect their attention to something else, but we need to validate them first. Did I miss a slide, Jean? No. Okay. So in looking for those, the physical or medical conditions that might be going on, right? What might be the trigger behind this behavior? Start there, right? Is there something physical going on? Are they physically uncomfortable? Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Do they need to go to the bathroom? Have they not moved around enough, right? Do a quick scan of your own body right now. I'll tell you honestly, I'm sitting in a pretty uncomfortable chair. And I feel this like lower back pain and a stiffness in my glutes, right? It's not comfortable. Too much time on Zoom is no good for anybody. But what can I do if I feel uncomfortable? I mean, not right now, I'm not going to get up and stretch and walk away in the middle of this webinar, but generally speaking, if I need to go to the bathroom, if I need a drink of water, my brain helps me understand those signals and will allow me to get up and go take care of what I need to do. In a person with dementia, they may not have the capacity to recognize the signals for what they are. That is your bladder telling you that it's full. You need to start making your way to the bathroom. Right, so they may feel all the same discomfort, the same need to urinate, to get a drink of water, or just to move, to get out of this uncomfortable chair. I've been sitting here for too long, but they may not have the capacity to do something about it. And that's a very common trigger we need to keep in mind. Is there something medical that's going on with this person? Are they experiencing illness? Might they have a urinary tract infection? Could there be something cardiovascular going on, right? It's not common for someone with dementia to just suddenly have a really dramatic change in their behavior or their function, or stop being able to talk, right, overnight. That would not be the normal progression of disease symptoms. And we want to be aware people with dementia have medical emergencies and illnesses and mental illnesses, right? Depression and anxiety that ratchets up, that we really need to be attuned to. Might this behavior be an expression of, I need some medical attention here? Emotional triggers, very common. Remember, I was talking about the frontal lobe. When there's damage there, it's hard for people to regulate their own emotions, right? They feel fear, they feel frustrated, trying to do something that's, there's too much going on in the room, there's a lot of distraction, or I'm trying to do a task that's just too complicated for me, or, you know I should be able to do this and I can't. If I'm living with dementia and I've got damage in my frontal lobe, I'm very likely to be unable to regulate those emotions, and you're going to see that come out, right, in the form of some kind of, maybe some combativeness or frustration, throwing the plate of chicken at you, for example, right? Sometimes it's a simple but complicated matter of being isolated, being bored, not having enough stimulation during the day. I saw in the chat somebody's who loves to still play Scrabble. Right? It's a wonderful example, right? People that still love to engage in activities like that. And sometimes we write them off and sort of assume if they can't play the way that they used to, what is the point, right? There's always a way to adapt and make these activities accessible and enjoyable to someone. Keep in mind, you don't have to be alone to feel isolated, right? Sometimes you can be with another person and feel very distant, disconnected from them, and that creates a feeling of isolation and loneliness. So don't assume that because somebody has company all day, right, that they're actually getting the social and kind of intellectual stimulation that they need. And finally, the last kind of category of these triggers is environmental in nature. If a person is in an unfamiliar environment, we're very likely to see an expression of, I need to go home, I need to get out of here, I don't know what this place is. And sometimes that unfamiliar environment can be a perfectly familiar place, right? They could have lived in that house for 20, 30, 40 years, but in this moment, I've got those brain changes happening. I've got damage in my parietal lobe and a limited field of vision. The light of the day is changing. Who knows, right? Something about the room is different and I don't recognize where I am. This is an unfamiliar environment to me, right? Sensory overload, there's just too much going on. There's a loud radio or television or animals running around or kids outside, whatever it might be. Often that will trigger, in particular, either isolating or wandering, right? I just need to get out of here. There's just too much going on here. And don't forget that you, as the care partner, the caregiver here, you are an important part of that person's environment too. When you're under a lot of stress, when you're not sleeping well, when you're just sick and tired of answering that same question over and over again, right? Whatever it might be, those things are in your energy too. They're on your face, they're in your tone of voice. And so that you are creating, you are contributing to their environment as well. So it is important when we talk about self-care, or we're not just talking sort of warm, fuzzy, fluffy stuff. It's really important for that person. You can really help eliminate a lot of triggers by having taken care of yourself, having gotten a little break so you can be fresh and pleasant and present, if at all possible. So we first assess, can I figure out what's triggering this behavior? Is this something that I can address? But what we always need to do before we move on to redirecting is we need to validate that important technique that Jean was describing, letting the person feel seen, feel heard, and feel understood, right? Trying to respond as best you can with calm, with reassurance, not patronizing, syrupy, sweet tones, unless that's how you've always communicated with them, in which case go for it. But right, just being calm and reassuring, letting them know that you understand, right? Jean did a nice job of saying, wow, you're really mad, right? In that role play, like, I really ticked you off. I really messed up here. I'm really sorry, right? An apology goes a really long way when it comes to validating somebody's feelings. And that's the bottom line of all of this, right? We're responding to the feelings, not to the facts. I've seen several questions in the Q&A about someone who's forgetting that a loved one has passed away, right? So what should we say instead? Right? Well, what's the emotion behind that? When I miss my mother, when I'm wondering where my spouse is, when sweet Joey was asking about Joe in Jean's story, right? What are we really asking? Do we really need to get caught up in the facts of what year that person died and where they're buried? And, do we need to drudge up all of those details? The facts are not what matter. The fact is, I miss this person. I'm wondering about them. I'm thinking about them. So connect to that. oh, your husband Joe, he was just such a doll. Let's go look at some pictures. Or, you know, I can see that you really miss him. Of course you're wondering where he is. It's been a long time since you've seen him, right? Saying something that connects to the feeling and doesn't necessarily get you all tripped up in the facts can be really helpful there. And then, of course, ultimately, our goal is like Jean did. She wanted to, you know, get me to eat that chicken. Her technique was to maybe get me cooking some chicken noodle soup, right? If somebody is just bound and determined, you know, that nurse down the hall there, she stole my purse. You know, I'm gonna get that lady fired. Right. Ultimately, your goal is to, well, okay, we need to redirect. Let's think of something she really enjoys. Oh, there's like a classic movie that she loves playing in the room down the hall. Let's get her into that room. Right. But if my mom is telling me somebody stole my purse, somebody is taking my things, I can't trust that person. Right. And I say, hey, guess what? The Wizard of Oz is playing down the hallway. Let's go watch it, right? There's a huge disconnect in my mind. You didn't see me, you didn't hear me. You're telling me that the Wizard of Oz is more important than my lost purse, my personal belongings, right? So what you have to do first before you can redirect me to the screening of the Wizard of Oz is tell me, gosh, I'm really sorry that happened, right? Let's see if we can figure this out. Right? That's validating me. You don't have to make up an elaborate story and go get somebody fired for stealing my purse, but you do have to tell me, I'm so sorry that happened. That's a scary feeling. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. Right? Then we'll go arm in arm and go look for my purse together, or we're on our way to go talk to that nurse and, oh, look what's happening. Wizard of Oz is playing in that room down the hall, right? You first have to tell me, you hear me. Otherwise, I'm not going to relax enough in order to be redirected, right? So what do we do? How exactly do we redirect someone? So here's where I want you to come back to that thing about your person that you thought of that hasn't changed, right? That thing that you shared in the chat, or maybe you just thought of something to yourself. A love of taking care of plants, the love of animals, the love of Scrabble, or the trips to the casino, or I saw a lot of beautiful examples, right? Think back to that thing. I'm gonna see if I can go backward here. When we are talking about redirecting, these are the things that we want you to have kind of in your toolbox, right? Think about the things that they still connect to, that they still love, that they still respond, and see if you can come up with some type of an activity, a way to redirect them and connect them to that thing that they love, right? It may not always be feasible when somebody is agitated. Let's hop in the car and go to the casino, right? It's not going to be something that's always going to be possible, but maybe there's a great photograph of you guys at a casino, or a deck of cards you could get out and do some card tricks, or, you know, think about some other way that you could connect them to that thing that they love, and have some of those things in your back pocket, if you will. Be ready to redirect them back to those things about them, those that haven't changed, that they still love. So I want to encourage you to think about connecting to your person through other means other than just words, right? We're very verbal, most of us, some of us more than others, right? And we tend to just talk. We think that talking is the only way that we can connect with people. But I really encourage you to think back to that thing about your person that hasn't changed, and think about some possible tools that you might have at your disposal, or if you're a long distance caregiver, right, somebody who is close by, who could, something they could bring out, right, the house plant to pick out the dead leaves and polish up the leaves, or a pet or a favorite blanket that feels, you know, really nice, or even a fake animal that just feels like having a little cat on your lap. The smell of chicken noodle soup in Jean's example, right? Maybe that would be a really nice way to redirect me, or cookies or coffee or something that's easier maybe than chicken noodle soup. A food that I really love, a flavor, or a sound. I think music in particular, I saw a lot in the chat. I saw a lot of you responding with particular, with examples of music and songs and things that's a very effective way of redirecting somebody. I love to share a story of a client that I worked with for a long time whose wife had a pretty late stage Alzheimer's disease, and she was becoming quite agitated around sort of personal care tasks. And he and his caregivers, the professional caregivers that supported him, figured out how much she loved country western music. And so when she would become agitated, right, they could pop on, they had playlists on the ready in the car, around the house, they could pop on a song, get her singing along, right? That was a way of connecting with her through her senses, and redirecting her back to a little bit of herself, so that they could get through those tasks together. So think about redirecting through touch, through sight, through smell, through taste, and through sounds that are other sounds aside from the sound of your voice, right? One of the most effective ways we have of communicating is just zipping it up, right? So we have a few minutes here to take a couple of questions. So Ellen, if you have any ready for us that we can address, we'd love to hear them.
One person is asking, how do I distinguish between early Alzheimer's and the person simply not paying attention?
Oh, okay. There's kind of two reasons you might be asking that question. One is like, I'm trying to figure out, does this person actually have Alzheimer's disease? And if that's the case, that is actually a very different question. But I'll try to answer this the other way, and that might be when I'm in a moment with somebody and I see that they're not paying attention, right? We're trying to have this communication. I'm trying to give them a set of instructions. We need to get dressed and get the shoes on because we need to get to the doctor's appointment, for example, and their attention is all over the place, right? In that moment, I may, as a caregiver, be very tempted to kind of go inside myself because I'm feeling frustration, I'm feeling sadness or grief, and I think to myself, gosh, does this have something to do with the fact that they have dementia, or is this actually a symptom of their disease? And my simplest answer would be, in that moment, it really doesn't matter, right? The fact is, if you want to communicate effectively with them, you got to just respond to what you've got, right? Instead of really trying to get at, is this about they're not focusing on me because they're not paying attention, because they are tired of me, they're trying to ignore me, right? Whatever it might be. Instead, I would try to dig into, what's the feeling there? If the person is distractible, if they are paying attention to something else, right? Might that be an emotional response to something else that's going on in the room, right? So focus on what's really in front of you and in that moment with the person, instead of really trying to kind of diagnose what's going on. If that question is more about, I don't have a diagnosis yet and I don't know what's going on with this person, that is in fact a very different question. And we can certainly talk to resources for getting screening, getting a diagnosis, and figuring out if what you're seeing is potentially a symptom of the disease.
And the other questions were mostly based on what do we tell our loved one about someone who's passed away? And I believe you addressed that earlier, which is very much appreciated.
Okay, great. Yeah, handling repetition. I think I see some questions about that, and Ellen, you gave some lovely, really helpful answers to that. I think in the case of answering a question that you're hearing repeatedly, excuse me, the best advice we can give, and it's often very frustrating to caregivers to hear it, but it's the best one. You take a deep breath and you answer again, right? You really have to remember, excuse me, you have to remember that, put yourself in their shoes, put yourself in their brain, right? Put yourself in that frontal lobe. This is the first time I've asked that question. So if you answer me by saying, Amy, I've already told you this 10 times, right? Clearly, I don't remember the first 9 times, right? So by saying something like that to me, or by giving me the eye roll or the big huff, or showing me that you're irritated or frustrated, I don't know why you're so mad, right? So you now are becoming part of my environment, and not in a good way. You're contributing to my stress and my agitation, and probably ramping up my anxiety too. So the simplest thing we can say about repetition is take a deep breath, answer with kindness, answer with compassion and patience. And if you're at the point where you know, if I hear that question one more time, right, I'm gonna blow my top, what that means is you need more support, right? You can't be doing this all by yourself. You need breaks. You need someone else to come in and answer that question for a little while, right? Yeah. Okay. We should probably keep moving here, Jean. There we go.
Unmute myself.
There you go.
Yes, we should. So just in talking about ongoing resources and for ongoing support, you know, here it is, folks, that you know, you can't pour from an empty cup. You know, you need to fill the cup. So if there's nothing in there, you have nothing left to give, that's a concern, that's a problem. How do you fill your cup? Well, you take care of yourself. And again, I know easier said than done. I think when you're a care partner, your needs fall oftentimes to the bottom of the to-do list. If that's happening to you, I really would encourage you to call us at All San Diego so that we can help to affect some change in that, because it's really important you not let yourself and your well-being fall to the bottom of the list. All of these areas are important. If you're having problems in some of these areas, please give us a call and we'll help craft some plans to be able to address some of the gaps. And for sure, build your support system. You know, reach out to folks that you know, friends and family. Stay connected to people. Do the things that feed your soul, that does help to fill your cup. Think about maybe attending a support and discussion group. There's great empowerment to be had in banding together with people who are doing the same thing that you are, who understand, because they are in your shoes as well too. And try and get some kind of daily break. And if you're having problems with that, again, you call us, because we will craft again some thoughts and ideas for you to be able to get your break. So we've got a terrific program. We've got lots of terrific programs, but one in particular, our Virtual Alz Companions program. And is Ellen going to talk a little bit? No, not today. Okay. So this particular program is where care partners and the folks living with dementia will have a trained volunteer assigned to them who will do some virtual social visits. And it's a fantastic program, and people are really, really enjoying it on all sides, the volunteers and the care partners and the folks living with dementia. So, and of course, we have all sorts of other great things going on. You can call us Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5 p.m. We have a team of dementia care consultants and social workers who can help you answer some of your questions and help you forge some new plans and grow your support network. We, of course, have our virtual support and discussion groups, many of them. You just need to go on our website to find out more about those. We've got online education and training, which we'll be referencing a couple of specific classes here soon. We do have our volunteer tech team. Alyssa, pardon me, joined us, and I'm not sure if she had any requests for assistance, but we always do have our volunteers available to assist. Social activities and outings that are being done virtually, and terrific things going on with that particular program. We have masks that have been sewn up by volunteers that if you need masks, you just give us a call. We can send those out to you. Talked about our virtual Alz companions. We do also have a shorter term counseling program that runs, I think the counseling goes on for about a 6-week period of time to help our care partners like yourselves during COVID times, who the pandemic is just creating extra stresses and concerns for you. We have a terrific new program called Alls, and these are volunteers who are keeping in touch with people who are living alone and experiencing some type of dementia. And it's a way to have some social connection and a little bit of a safety net as well too. Our Walk for Alls is coming up, folks, October 17th. And we hope that you will join us. It's a virtual walk. So this year we will be coming together by computers. And this is our big fundraiser for our organization. We're very excited about it. Getting good response and support for this particular walk. And we hope we see you there on that day on October 17th. We'll be there doing our virtual walking. You can always visit our website. Our website really has a wealth of information, and I encourage you to go and have a look. And everything from, yes, information and resources and tip sheets. Also very proud of, Amy and I are, of our webinar libraries, where you can see some recorded versions of some of our classes. And of course, all sorts of other great information. Call us, as I said, Monday through Friday. We're going to send out a link in chat here if you would like to request follow-up from one of our family support team, our family services team. And you just can put in your information and the areas that you would like some information and or assistance with, and one of our team will get back to you.
I'll just add, even if you don't really know what you need,
That's right.
It's fine, right? If fill it out, and a member of our family services team will reach out and check in with you. So.
Yep. And next week we have a webinar on Thursday that is Safety at Home. It's open for everyone. It's being presented with Elder Help of San Diego. Amy will be presenting that, and I will be involved in the background. And then on Tuesday, September 15th, we are having a COVID-19 Town Hall Forum. And what we are wanting to do is hear from all of you folks about what, kind of, I keep referring to it as the good, the bad, and the ugly of sheltering in place, of pandemic, of COVID-19. What has worked for you, what hasn't, where are the gaps? We're particularly interested in hearing what's not working and where are the gaps in service for you folks. So this is your opportunity to come and, that's where we want to hear your voices. Anything else you'd add about that, Amy?
Thank you. That's great. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. So we thank you for today and for joining us. And we would very much love your feedback. So when we wrap up here today, you'll get a link to an online survey that is anonymous. Please fill it out. It's important information. We always look at the survey results very carefully to see what are the areas that we can change things and make them better. And so we appreciate your feedback. Thank you for joining us, and we wish you all well. Have a good, I hope, long weekend, Labor Day weekend. This weekend, stay cool. It's supposed to be hot. Make sure you hydrate. And sayonara till next time.
Thank you, Alyssa and Ellen, for all your help today. We appreciate that. Thank you all for attending. We'll see you, hopefully we'll see you again at another program soon.